Well, Tom, you wanted me to make a video, so here it is. I'm standing at the bottom of my stairs. This is the scene on the layout that I've finished. Finished it some time ago. I think I've done a previous video on it. But anyway, as we get closer, you can see the detail of it. I think it came out looking pretty good. One kind of addition within the last, I don't know, year anyway, is this building right here, which, believe it or not, is actually made out of paper. Building next to it's made out of plastic, but it's made out of paper. It is three-dimensional. You can kind of see if you look at those loading dock doors on the bottom floor, there's a little bit of depth to it. You can see I put in a loading dock there. But I made this out of sheets of paper. It's kind of a scratch-built building. It's, as you can tell from the top, it's an odd-shaped space, and I needed a special building for that space. So that finishing that building pretty much finishes this scene. As you can see, I think it came out pretty good. I've tried to use theater techniques to give a perception of depth in an area that's only about 20 inches deep. So I think it came out decent. Moving around to the other side, we got the other tunnel, which goes around to the other side of this peninsula. On the other side is a total opposite of what you've just seen. One final look at it. I think that's kind of a neat view. The other side is totally opposite. It's totally barren. This is the scene that I'm going to be working on next. I've sculpted the foam and put some plaster on it. I painted the plaster. The next job is to make a whole bunch of trees. This mountain, this hill is going to be all covered with trees. There'll be some trees here in the foreground. This ridge that runs down the whole length of the peninsula will be covered with trees and bushes. And then this hill for the other tunnel also will be covered with trees all the way. Well, I'm ending right there where the white is on the left of the screen. And then I'm going to also cut in the turntable and install the turntable. Right now it will be a manual turntable, although I may talk to my friend Bob Finch about mechanizing it somewhat. I also have to put down ballast, the gravel rocks that go between and around all the rails, and do some scenery, weeds and stuff around the few buildings that are in this particular area. So I've got my work cut out for me here. It's probably going to be a year or two project. As you can see, kind of working my way around the layout. Up here, the upper level is the coal mine that I did some time back. That's a new coal mine. I replaced the old one. The old one had a 3-stall loading tipple. This one just has two tracks going underneath to load cars. It was a new product put out by Walthers, and I built one because I was going to have to scratch build one, but they made one, so I grabbed it and built it. And I'm hoping to be able to finish this this area here next in front of that coal mine, so it all looks decent. But I've got a long ways to go, and I'm going to have to make a lot of trees to do it. That's a Maryland and Southern freight station on the edge of the entrance to the yard. And coming around here, on the upper level is a branch line that runs back to the coal mine. That's a little station I've put in there. In the foreground, in the middle is a track that runs back to the back room. The foreground is a track running from the back room. So this is part of the loop that I've got here. There's some supplies I was using to paint the scenery area that I'm working on now. We come around here, we get to the area where a future river will be. Put that in there because at some point I want to learn how to do water, and I think it'll be a fun project whenever I get around to it. And then install 3 sets of bridges there. Going on around, we come to a grain elevator, a little scene there, which is about half finished. Moving on, we got the small little town of Canyon. Not much more than a whistle stop and a general store. Behind it is the canyon, which at some point will be an interesting thing to do scenery on, because the way I see it, it'll be mostly a rock cut. So it'll be a true canyon with a lot of rock castings to do. And that should be kind of fun if I ever get around to it, if I live that long. In the background there is the big mountain, no name. I guess I'm calling it the big mountain in the middle of the layout mountain. And then coming down here in front is another small peninsula which has Center City. Now the only thing I've done with Center City is I lowered it. It used to be 2 of these sheets of foam high, and I took 1 out, so I like it lower. I'm in the process of building this this building right here, which is an 8-story tall, I think it's 8-story tall warehouse. Has openings on the street, and in the back here it has loading docks for loading stuff out of the warehouse into freight cars. I mean, what you see in the video is basically a placeholder for the building I intend to build. I've started working on it. It'll be a project. It'll be another 3-dimensional building like the one I showed you before. Probably change the color of it a little bit and probably weather it up a little bit with charcoal and stuff like that. In the background are 3 buildings that John Dow built. In the first one is the headquarters, actually, of the Maryland and Southern Railroad. I need to put a logo on the front here somewhere. Haven't done that yet. This is the A1 Hotel and Lounge. You can see that John used A1 steak sauce bottle for that one. In the back is a modern skyscraper that we did. He made this to my specifications, and I told him I wanted him to leave the old storefronts the way they have done in some cities. They preserve the old storefronts and build a modern building behind it, and that's what I wanted him to do, so that's what he did for me. But Center City is going to require a fair amount of more work on it. And for instance, I need another building. I'm going to have to build another building for this corner here, and do some work in this center section of the city. The tan building, I'll go around on the other side. The tan building is actually I don't know if you can see it there, but it is the Reed Theater. And I intend to have that have a big skyscraper behind it. The Maryland Theater here in town is a theater that is on the first floor, which has apartments and whatever above it, and I intend to do the same thing with that building. Moving on around out of there, we see the big mountain again. Coming down, we have here in the foreground is a brewery. This is also a paper building. and it is also kind of a placeholder. I have another set of the paper building for this, and I intend to do the same 3D effect with it that I've done with these other buildings. I really like that building there in the foreground. It just kind of looks cool with a boxcar waiting there to either unload hops and whatever or load beer. But I just think that's kind of cool. Background has a branch line. There's a freight station, a watering station. There's some housing. The freight station is for people working at the mine. There's some mining houses up there on the hill, and the other coal mine is there. And then coming down in the foreground, the one track goes back into the other room, and the foreground track goes into the other room, also making a big loop. Now the area here behind the freight station and water tower and that industrial building, those are there just temporarily, by the way. In fact, there's nothing in that area permanent. It's just totally empty. What it will be in the future is there will be a branch that takes off, a siding that takes off from this switch here, will go into this area, and there will be a sawmill in this area, complete with a lake for the logs to be dumped in, the sawmill and all the stuff that goes with it, a couple of sidings, one to dump the logs and one to take out wood products, wood and sawdust, pulpwood, for other places on the layout. But leaving there and going back into the back room, into my staging yard, the staging yard hasn't really changed much. It's still pretty much exactly the same as it always has been. Nothing has been done with it. As you can see, I got a lot of cars now. Matter of fact, this is only part of them. All of what you see here, these cars and buildings and everything, is the stuff I took off the area of the layout that I'm working on right now. So one thing I wanted to show you was a couple of little projects I've done. This is a log load. Actually, it's telephone poles. It's a load of telephone poles that I made up. Somebody gave me this old log car, and I thought I need a load for it. So I made these telephone poles out of bamboo skewers, and it's removable. The other is a pulpwood load that I made up to fit into a pulp load car. Next is a kit that I built for a flat car, a depressed center flat car. Now, I currently don't have a load for it. It's just empty, and I haven't weathered it or aged it or anything yet, but probably will in the future. And then there's some experiments I did. This is a coal car that I weathered, and I tried to weight it down because it's so light. It kept coming off a lot of my open bay hoppers come off the rails. I needed more weight. So I put some shotgun shot in there, and it took that much shotgun shot to bring it up to standard weight, a lot of weight. And it looks terrible, so I'm not happy with that way of increasing the weight. But that was a little experiment I did. It looks really cool, I think. This is a gondola load, a partial load that I colored up. And next to it is, I bought a couple of old gondola cars, and I really heavily weathered them to make them look like they're all beat up and been used for years. This one contains a load of pipes that I made out of a couple of swizzle stick things and some wire. But they're supposed to be like 1 foot, foot and a half diameter pipes. And then here's another one that I banged up and weathered up heavily. You can see where loads have been dropped on the sides of it and dented it and nicked it and everything. And then you can see some of the trash that's been left in it over the years. And it's obviously been sitting out in the yard for a long time and has gotten pretty weathered. But anyway, that's some of my projects, and that's the staging yard. And pretty much that's the story of my layout. So hope you enjoyed the tour.